player not in the Hall of Fame, Steve Tasker.
You guys are out of your territory over your special teams guys, aren't you?
You're a superstar.
Yeah.
Steve Tasker defined what a special team player is.
Even Bill Parcells told Marv Levy that he had to game plan around Steve Tasker. This man was the greatest special teams player of all time.
He played an incredibly vital role on that team, and that team dominated the AFC for 4 or 5 years.
Marv Levy called him one time the most important man on his team.
Okay, Steve, have a good one, pal.
That wasn't just, okay, nice try-hard guy. Steve Tasker is really a world-class athlete.
He was generally considered, by consensus, the best special teams player in the league over a good period of time.
He was a very good cover man. He was a very good kick blocker.
And the kick is blocked. Steve Tasker.
Can you say special teams?
He's the best I've ever seen at covering kicks, covering punts, and he could make a play for you every once in a while on the wide out position.
Throw to the end zone. Tasker, and he got it.
Jim Kelly, the quarterback, lobbied all the time to get Marv Levy to let him play wide receiver, but Levy wouldn't let him. Most coaches don't want to waste their good players on special teams. Well, Marv Levy didn't want to waste Steve Tasker to play in the regular offense.
What a little competitor that son of a
I'm on the Hall of Fame committee, and I have nothing against Steve Tasker. I have nothing against Ray Guy. Probably on their ability, they were the best at what they did. But I know I myself, I'm going to vote for an every down player before I'm going to vote for a guy who's on the field for 5 or 6 plays in a game.
What the hell is that about now?
It would be like putting the best pinch hitter in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Special team guys, they're not Hall of Famers. I mean, you got to play the game totally.
As a matter of fact, special teams is a third of the game.
Special teams is 1/3 of the game.
Third of the game.
Special teams is not a third of the game. If it was really a third of the game, you'd see special teamers being drafted in the first round all the time.
I think it's hard to put a special teams guy in the Hall of Fame. They might be great at it, but why is he on special teams? Because he can't start on offense and he can't start on defense.
When you talk about the Hall of Fame, it's a very special thing. And to put a kicker in there or a special teams guy, you're basically spitting on the face of Dick Butkus.
Oh, man.
And he doesn't like that very much.
I think there's definitely a case to make for a special teams guy, and I think Steve Tasker should be the first name you think of.
It's ridiculous that Steve Tasker is not in the Hall of Fame.
If I had to vote, I'd vote for Steve Tasker.
If you're going to say how important special teams are, then if the player that's the best ever at that certain craft isn't in the Hall of Fame, then you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. If Steve Tasker's the best special team player ever, which I think he is,
that's the most spectacular special teams play I have ever seen.
He's first ballot.
That's all she wrote, guys.
Eddie Abramoski.
Abidoo, he was great. He was he's always, at the time I played when he was there, he was always one of the first people in the organization that every player met, head trainer. He had a wealth of knowledge that was, it really sometimes amazed me. He said, he'd say, you know, I got this, I got these symptoms, I got this symptoms, and he wouldn't even have to examine you, and he'd say, listen, it's going to be this, it's going to be this long, it's going to feel like this, and it's going to look like this, you know, and he knew. He'd seen so much over the course of his career, because he started when, you know, ice and aspirin was the treatment, and you know, then it got to the point where it was ultrasonic treatments, and you know, electric stem, and all this stuff that they use, and you know, even more modern techniques of using it. He knew how long it was going to take for something to heal, and how long you were going to be out. He was a great guy. Plus, he was fun. He was great. We used to play cards in training camp. He was great.
Fred Smerlas.
Freddie was, I used to call him my Uncle Gigi, but Fred was an outstanding football player, played nose tackle in a 3-4 defense, nose guard in a 3-4 defense, and went to 5 Pro Bowls over 9 years, for 3 or 4 years through the Hank Bulla eras of head coach, and then also went once with Marv as a nose tackle. Was a great player, unselfish, great team-oriented guy. Probably a little right politically, just to the right of, Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, he's to the right of Newt Gingrich. So he's pretty conservative in his political leanings.
Was there much of that talk in the clubhouse, kind of non-football political?
Not really, not too much. Some, but not really. Only as it really pertained to us, and if there was a story going on or something in the news, everybody'd talk, comment on it. But you had guys from every walk of life, from every corner of the country. So you had every view too, as well. So, but it's one of those locker rooms. We had a lot of very intelligent guys in that locker room. So if you said something, you better be able to back it up, because somebody would shoot it down. You really had to be able to defend your point of view, because everybody was fair game.
Those who I've talked to, whether it's Bruce and Shane, a lot of people, they all kind of reflect on Darryl Talley as the guy who could really get the most out of players and really push them, and be probably the only guy to really get into Bruce's face.
Sure. Well, he and Bruce are close.
Yeah.
Darryl had a persona about him where the guys on the team really believed he would fight for something he believed in, for the good of the team. And it didn't matter who it was, whether it was, coaches, players, and to his credit, Darryl was always stood for what was best for the team. Not best for him, not best for the defense, not best for whoever, for the good of the team, the way it should have been. And that's why, when Darryl spoke, people listened. And in Bruce. And let's face it, we had a good team. And we had Bruce and Jim and Thurman and Andre and Fred, Smerlas, and we had some guys that that accomplished a few things, and sometimes they needed to be told no. Sometimes they needed to be told to shut up and sit down, and Darryl would do it, and they'd listen.
You talked earlier about a couple of receivers, Andre Reed and James Lofton. Here they are, and receivers tend to have their own personalities unto themselves. Was that an easy mix to have guys of such AAA abilities?
Well, Andre Reed was a special athlete. He came into the league very rough out of Kutztown State, had a lot to learn about being a professional receiver, but to his credit, every year he would go and he'd work on something in his game that needed to be worked on. Already had great hands, and he was strong with the ball and good ball skills. Great body control, but like one year he would go out and he wanted to run better routes, and he absolutely did. He came back running great routes, and he wanted to run better after the catch, and he certainly did the next year. There were things about his game he worked on, blocking downfield, and he was really dedicated to it. And then we had a guy like James Lofton. We got him late in the '89 season, James Lofton, and what a breath of fresh air he was. He was a great addition to that team. He was really one of the things, him along with Cornelius Bennett, were players that not only were great players, but they were also personality who were catalysts for other players to become great, to relax in some cases, or to become more professional in others. They had great personalities that mixed with the chemistry of that locker room, particularly the guys at their position. Cornelius with guys on the defensive front, and certainly James with the receiving core, getting guys to not take it quite so seriously, but then on other levels take it much more seriously. And what a great addition he was to our team. And I think he helped Andre immensely, not only with his ability to draw attention away from Andre, but also off the field, being his friend and his mentor.
Did Cornelius Bennett do the same thing for Bruce Smith?
Well, I think Cornelius was more of a guy who, for Bruce, because there was Darryl who lined up on defense right next to Bruce. And Cornelius helped Bruce most by lining up on the other side. He was a phenomenal athlete. He was a great player, great fast linebacker, great character, a great human being, and one who cared deeply about the game and about his teammates. I think if there was one player in that group and on our team who did not get the credit he deserved as a football player, it was Cornelius Bennett. I think he had Hall of Fame ability, and he was a Hall of Fame person, and I would like to see him get more credit than he has up to this point.
During that golden era of the early 90s, you hear often about the offensive Kelly, Thomas, Lofton, Reed, and often about the defense. You don't hear much about, though we know they were extremely solid, the offensive line.
Well, when you talk about what happened to that team and why it kind of stopped being the dominant force it was, it started with the offensive line. We lost Howard Ballard and Will Wolford, the two tackles, and we lost. That hurt us. John Fina was supposed to be a guard, but he moved to left tackle and actually was left tackle on 2 Super Bowl teams. That's how good they were drafting. John Fina was a phenomenal football player. Played extremely well out of position. And but that, I think, was the start of it all. Kent Hull anchored that line for so many years, and they ran a lot of guys in and out of the right guard position. But Jimmy Richard was there for as long as he played on left guard, and then they moved in John Davis, Glenn Parker, different guys were in and out of that lineup. Mitch Farrat. But Kent Hull was the guy that was kind of the constant on those teams, and then 2 tackles with Will and Howard. That's when the offense really started to be caught up to by defenses and being able to be contained, because for a while it was unstoppable.
Scott Norwood, wide right, and he played one more year after that, and then the Steve Christie sort of came in and competed and won that. What was the sense of Scott? Who clearly was a solid performer, but one play sort of has imprinted him.
Yeah, no question. I mean, and it was a tough play. It's a tough play to have for a guy to have on his resume. But Scotty, won that division for us to get us into that spot. He kicked really well, and it's amazing. You're right. It does define him. I've had people tell me it's a shame that his last play as a Buffalo Bill was wide right, and I said, well, actually, he kicked in the next Super Bowl for us too, and was perfect in the next Super Bowl. As everybody else who stunk the next Super Bowl, But Scotty, went to the Pro Bowl as a place kicker, kicking in Buffalo. He's a pretty good kicker. And to kick a 46-yarder, 47-yarder off grass on that field, George Toma can say what he wants. They had too much paint on the field, and especially in the middle, right in that section, right in the middle. I know George Toma, but that was a tough kick. It was a really difficult kick to make.
Has Linger ever talked to you about the snap and the rotation, and has he ever gone through that analysis with you?
No.
It's funny because...
No, and Scotty, to his credit, says, no, the snap and hold were perfect. I don't know if they were or not. I really don't. I know Frank Reich was the holder. I don't know.
I interviewed Adam. He was down here maybe 6 months ago, and he really analyzed it. And he talked to Frank, and Frank says, I got it, and I didn't turn it. And it just like the quarter turn that you needed to have it, because otherwise the whole mechanics of it all, where if you didn't turn it, it goes straight. Right. Otherwise you get the hook. And Adam was really, really struggling with explaining that and saying, there was the 3 of us.
And it's a team, believe me, that loss was a 47-man effort.
Yeah.
So, you can point the finger all you want at Scotty, but that's the easy way out.
As I'm sure you do, people pause, reflect on that 4-year run, and as it turns out, not likely to ever be replicated.
Not likely.
Yeah. What is the legacy, to you guys? As you look back and you pull together, you get together reunions. And
at this point, we take great pride in the fact that we're the only team to go back 4 times in a row. And you think back at some of the time, there were a handful of times, at least, where that streak could have come to an end. The wild card game in '93 when we came back. The playoff game the next week in Pittsburgh. We could have gotten beaten there. And there's play after play where, or game after game where we were on the ropes or whatever, and ended up pulling it out over the course of those 4 years. And you lose any one of those games. Get Denver, we beat them 10-7, and we didn't score an offensive touchdown. In that second championship game. The third championship game, we go down to Miami, and we beat them bad on the road. And we would never want to play those guys again in that season. And then the fourth one, you got Joe Montana coming and trying to get back to the Super Bowl against what it looked like was going to be the 49ers. What a story it would have been with Joe Montana going back to the Super Bowl with the Chiefs, playing against the San Francisco 49ers who sent him there. You know, that was going to be a great story, and it looked like, you know, we were going to be a footnote. It didn't happen, you know. And the Chiefs had thumped us during the regular season. I mean, thumped us bad. They were a good football team. Just not on that day. So, you know, there's a handful of times, and more than that probably, that run could have come to an end and been severed, but it just didn't happen. We ended up going to 4 straight.
The comeback game, the wild card game, the Houston Oilers, it's played a lot, and with good reason. At what point did you think this was going to turn around? Like that particular game was going to actually...
What did you say?
This is the Oilers game.
Well, we didn't think it was going to turn around. We got in at halftime, and we were down 28-3, and we didn't do any. I mean, we had played poorly. Not even. I mean, we had really played poorly, and they were playing great. They were good. Warren was great in that game. He was a great quarterback playing his best. And they'd been up there before and gotten beat by us in a playoff game before, so they had a chip on their shoulder in the whole 9 yards. They'd beaten us the week before. I mean, there's all this stuff that's piled on top of it for them. And they had a lot of reason to be motivated, let alone the playoffs. And Warren was playing great. So at halftime, we're thinking, you know what, let's just... And Marv said it. He said, just don't let him say he quit. I don't know if we can come back and win this, but we're not going to quit. So we said, you know what? We've been to 2 straight Super Bowls already. He's right. Let's go out. We'll finish on it with some pride and see what happens, you know, next year or whatever. So we did. We went out, and of course Frank threw a quick pick for 6, and we're down 35-3. And it's like, it doesn't matter. We're going to keep playing. Yeah, and it really got to that point. It didn't matter. Just keep playing. We're getting killed. The game's over. Our season's probably over. The run is over. We went to 2 straight Super Bowls. Who thought we'd get to 3? I mean, it's crazy. Just keep playing. Just keep playing. So we went out and played, and then, you know, real quickly on the next series, we go bing, 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 bang, touchdown. Okay, great. It's 38-10. That's fine. Well, then we kick a surprise onside, and that was something the coaching staff did, Marv did, that was like, that's not quitting. You know, and it was a signal to Marv, from Marv to us about, you know, listen, we're not going to quit. We're going to, you know, do what it takes. You know, you got to get the ball back, and we did. So we get the ball back, and no, we quit. And when we recovered that surprise onside kick, for the first time in the game, the crowd got into it. They were proud of us. They knew the game was over, just like we did. They weren't fooled. They knew we were done, but they appreciated the fact that we weren't giving up. We were going to fight tooth and nail to the bitter end. So they said, okay, good. So they started cheering. And then again, bing, 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 we scored real quick again. So now it's 17-35. And you could just see everybody look at the scoreboard. There's a lot of time left in the third quarter. Well, let's just see. Well, the Oilers went ding, 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 and the Oilers had shut it down. They punted. And we go bang, bang, bang again. And all of a sudden, then it's like, wait a minute. Now it's you know, it's 24-35. We're down by 11. We got a quarter and a half to go. We've done this before. And then it was off and running, and the Oilers were like, let's just hang on. Well, they started hanging on, you know, too early, you know. And there were a lot of things that happened in that game. We had some balls that, you know, it's just one thing after another. And none of it should have happened for us, and shouldn't have happened against them, but it did. And we score, and we go 35-31. We're down 4. There wasn't a person in that stadium or on our sidelines who didn't think we were going to win that game. Literally, everybody thought we were going to win that game, and we were still behind.
So Del Greco ties it up. You go into overtime.
Del Greco ties it up. He can't even remember the kick. Al's a great dude.
Yeah.
I feel bad for it because he didn't even remember that kick. It was a good kick too. You know, it was in a huge situation.
Yeah. So you get to this old overtime, and you know, finally Steve puts it through, and the iconic Frank, Reich, and Steve screaming and yelling. Was there ecstasy? I mean, what was the sidelines like?
It was amazing. It was like, I knew he was going to make it. Steve, you know, Steve was money, and he kicks that, and I remember guys were thinking, you got to the point where you think, okay, what am I going to do when this kick goes through? Because it's going to go crazy out here. Because we've been there before, fans coming on the field, people trying to get off. It's a playoff game, and word had gotten out late in the game that it was the biggest comeback in history if we can pull it off, that kind of thing. So the word had got out. People and the crowd was just, they were frothing at the mouth. They were slobbering. They couldn't wait to get on the field because they knew, so you knew. So before he kicked it, guys on the sidelines, me included, were thinking, okay, well, I want to go out. I'm going to go out and give Steve a hug. It's going to be great and stuff, but we got to get out of here. And kick went off. Man, it was amazing. And I had played for the Oilers. I had some guys over there I wanted to say something to, and I never even got the chance. Never got the chance.
When your kids come up and learn more about you and your career, and they ask you and they say, "Dad, what's your legacy here? What's all the years, 13 years you had in the NFL? What have you left there?"
Well, I think for my kids, and I talk to my kids, about what they're going to do with their lives and stuff. And the one thing I did, if you want to generalize it, is I did something really well that not too many other people were even interested in doing. Every year, it never ceases to amaze me. There are kids, I say kids, there are young men in the National Football League who don't make NFL rosters because they don't want to cover kicks. Literally, don't want to. Great athletes, great football players who don't understand that by being willing to do something like cover kicks, they get a chance to play. They get a chance to be on a team like the one I was on. I mean, I was on a team with a handful of Hall of Fame guys and a Hall of Fame head coach. And I got to be there through that whole run because I covered kicks. And, you can say what you want about, how good I was or whatever. Man, I was on that team. And, as I go, that's all I care about. I don't care if I, get another good thing happen to me the rest of my life because of football. I was on that team, and I got a lot of tremendous buddies and friends because of it. And I just think, if I do have a legacy, it's the fact that I loved football enough to do anything it took to be on that team. And however good or bad I was or how much success I had is irrelevant to me for the fact that I got to play. I played 13 years in the NFL. And I was 5'9", $183, and I could do it. I did it, and loved doing it. Loved doing it, and earned a certain measure of respect doing it. And I think that's what I give that's my legacy. I mean, I'm just another. Basically, I'm another good man among a league that's full of good men, and I'm okay with that.
Do the Bills bring you back to teach a little bit of special teams, or do they?
Yeah, Bobby April had me back once or twice. He had me back. I spoke to their gunners and guys who rush punts about techniques and what they want to do and things to think about. They changed the rules. I tell them they changed the rules because of me. I made it harder on them because it used to be you get when you're covering a punt, you're out wide. The guys they'd push you out of bounds, Well, it used to be they'd push you out of bounds. I'd jump behind the players standing on the sidelines and run up unblocked and pop back out on the field. I'd do that. If it happened, I'd do that, and then they outlawed that. You can't do that anymore. And it's the Steve Tasker. They don't call it that, but it's the Steve Tasker rule. I didn't invent it, but I perfected it. And so that now you can't do that anymore. So the young guys have a little chuckle over that, but.
What's the rule now? If they chuck you and you go out of bounds, are you out of the play?
No, you can come. You have to make an attempt to come right back in, but they can't hit you until you're back in.
I got you.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, that's it.
That's great, Steve. Thanks so much. I appreciate
My pleasure.
it.